Thank you, Dennis. And thanks to having me here. Basically, the problem is that I can't seem to get the forensics evidence into a court or up into the mainstream of evidence for refuting Russiagate. The point is that we looked at in the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, we have a bunch of technical people, including Kirk Beebe and I, and some others, and some affiliates that were in the UK who also joined the analysis process. And we were looking at the files posted by WikiLeaks, because the allegation from the beginning is that Russia hacked the DNC and gave the emails to WikiLeaks to publish, which they did. They published. So we looked at those emails to see if there was something there that might give us some idea of how the WikiLeaks got that data. Well, in all the 35,813 emails that they posted in three batches, one downloaded according to last modified times on the 23rd of May, and the other another on the 25th of May, and one on the 26th of August of 2016. Now, all those files, all 35,813, had a last modified time that was rounded off to the to an even second. So they all ended up in even seconds. Now, if you know anything about data processing and data storage and things of that nature, there is a program that was quite common in the past using what's called FAT file formatting, file allocation table formatting, which is a process that when doing a batch process of data and transferring it to a storage device like a thumb drive or a CD-ROM, it rounds off the last modified time to the nearest even second. So that's exactly the property we found in all that data posted by WikiLeaks. Now, that said, very simply, this data was downloaded to a storage device, a CD-ROM or a thumb drive, and physically transported before WikiLeaks could post it. So that meant it was not a hack. So no matter how you look at it, we're looking at the forensic evidence that says the DNC emails were not hacked. They were downloaded and physically transported to WikiLeaks. And then we had the other issue with Guccifer 2. Now, Guccifer 2 came out shortly after, Julian Assange announced that he had emails on Hillary Clinton and so on, and the DNC. Well, when you looked at the material that, which we did, looked at all the material that Guccifer 2 posted and said, here are the hacks that I did on the DNC. He claimed he did one on the 5th of July and one on the 1st of September of 2016. Well, when you start looking at that, and we looked at the files he posted, gave you a series of files with file names, the numbers of characters in the file, and a timestamp at the end of the file. Then the next file, number of characters, and timestamp, and so on for, I don't know how many files, thousands of files. So we looked at all those files and said, okay, we ran a program to calculate the transfer rate of all that data, because all you have to do is look at between the two timestamps, the file name and the number of characters in the file, and take the difference between the times, and that's the transfer rate for that number of characters. So we found that the variations ran from something like 19 to 49.1 megabytes per second. Now that means 19 to 49 million characters per second. And that we said the international web would, and the World Wide Web would not support that rate of transfer. Not for anybody who's just a hacker coming in across the net trying to do it. It won't support that kind of transfer. And some people thought we couldn't, that was wrong, that it could be done. And so we said, okay, we're going to try it. So we got organized some hackers in Europe to try to transfer a data set from the US over to Europe just to see how fast we could get it there. And we tried it from Albania and Serbia, a couple places in the Netherlands and London, data center. Well, we got various rates, but the highest rate we got was between the data center in New Jersey and one in London, and that was 49.1 megabytes per second, or 12 megabytes per second, which is 1/4 the rate, little less than 1/4 the rate necessary to do the transfer at the highest rate that we saw in the Guccifer 2 data, which meant it didn't go across the net. So in fact, the file rate transfers were nowhere near the maximum rate that we could do. And so we said, okay, if anybody has a way of getting it there, let us know, and we'll help you try to do that. And so far, no one has ever come forward to dispute either the facts on the DNC data, last file, modified file times, nor the transfer rates for the Guccifer 2. Plus, there's another factor. With Guccifer 2, there's two more. With the Guccifer 2 data, the first of the 5 July data and the 1 September data, if you ignored date and hour, they could merge like you're shuffling a deck of cards. The holes in the 5 July data timing were filled by data from the 1st of September. That said to us that Guccifer 2 was playing with the data, separating into 2 files, saying he made 2 different hacks and doing a range change on the date and the hour on the 1 file. So that to us was also an indication of fabrication on the part of Guccifer 2. Then there was another factor. When Guccifer 2 put out some files on 15 June of 2016 with the signatures of Russian, saying it's a Russian hack, our fellows in the UK looking at the data found 5 of those files at a minimum. I don't know that it's through yet looking, but they found 5 files that Guccifer 2 posted on the 15th of June with Russian signatures saying the Russians did this because of the signature. They found the same 5 files posted by WikiLeaks from a Podesta emails, and they did not have the Russian signatures. So that meant Guccifer 2 was inserting Russian signatures to make it look like the Russians did the hack. Well, if you go back to the Vault 7 release from WikiLeaks again, from CIA, and you look, they have this Marble Framework program that will modify files to look like someone else did the hack, and who were the countries that they had the ability to do that in the Marble Framework program? Well, one was Russia, the other was China, North Korea, Iran, and Arab countries. Well, to us then that means that the fabrication of the insert of Russian signatures means that somebody modified the file to make it look like it, which fits the Marble Framework definition of doing that kind of activity, which says all of this Guccifer 2 material is pointing back now to CIA as the origin of it. That's the basic evidence we have, and none of it points to Russia. In fact, we can't even find anything that points to Russia. When in fact the Mueller indictment, or the Mueller report and that Rosenstein indictment named some what they called trolls for the Russian government, the IRA, the Internet Research Agency out of St. Petersburg in Russia. They named it in a court document. And well, the IRA over in there said we are not in any way associated with the Russian government. So they sent lawyers in to challenge that in the court of law here in the US. And the court charged the government to prove it. And they couldn't even prove anything. And so the judge basically reprimanded them and said, you are never to mention the IRA as any way affiliated with the Russian government again. So their whole case was falling apart. Everything looked like the Guccifer 2 data was a fabrication, the alleged hack and so on, all fabrication. And even if you look at some of the testimony that came out from the CrowdStrike CEO, I think his name was Sean Henry, he said we had no indications of exfiltrating the data, but we had evidence that it was exfiltrated. Now, if he's talking about the last modified times as an indication of exfiltration, which it was, but it wasn't from a hack, it was from a download. So that download then is an indication that it was done locally, as were the Guccifer 2 data. They couldn't go across the net. It was a download locally. All that stuff happened locally. In fact, some of the data in the Guccifer 2 material had all the timestamps indicating it was done on the East Coast of the United States. We had one in the Central Time and one on the West Coast, but most of them fell on the East Coast. So it implied that all this stuff was happening on the East Coast, and that really pointed right back at CIA as the origin of all this fabrication.